The poor waitress with the widowed millionaire's triplet daughters was locked in the bathroom, but the truth came out. The dining room had gone quiet an hour ago, but Megan's shift was far from over. She moved between tables like a shadow-red uniform faded to rust. Sneakers washed so many times the brand logo had disappeared into white noise. 25 years old, and she'd already perfected the art of being overlooked, which was both a survival skill and a curse. "Table 12 needs water," Stephanie Hayes said without looking up from her tablet. Nails clicking against the screen like tiny hammers. "And when you're done, the storage room upstairs could use organizing." "Yes, ma'am." Megan had learned early that the fastest way through a shift was to keep your head down and your answers short. Stephanie wasn't the owner, just the manager, but she ran the upscale side of Mancini's, like it was her personal kingdom. Immaculate blazer, hair pulled back so tight it could have been painted on, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. The restaurant had two faces: the main floor, where families celebrated birthdays over pasta, and the mezzanine, where people with money came to forget they had problems. Megan usually worked downstairs, but lately Stephanie had been pulling her up to the VIP section more often. She wasn't sure if it was a promotion or a test. Megan, she turned to find Marcus, one of the line cooks, holding out a takeout bag. "Your grandma's dinner, tell Mrs. Eleanor I added extra breadsticks. You're gonna spoil her. Somebody should spoil somebody around here," Marcus said, low enough that only she could hear. He shot a glance toward Stephanie's back. "Watch yourself up there." "Yeah, Hayes has been in a mood all week," Megan nodded, tucking the warm bag into her locker before heading back out. The mezzanine was technically just a raised platform overlooking the main dining room, but it felt like a different planet. Soft lighting, tables spaced far enough apart that conversations stayed private, and a dress code that made her secondhand uniform feel even more obvious. She'd grown up in the kind of neighborhood where you learn not to look too closely at where the money came from. Her mother had died when she was 7. Pneumonia that went untreated too long because the clinic was always packed and prescriptions cost more than groceries. After that, it was just Megan and her grandmother in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like lavender and old books. Mrs. Eleanor had raised her on songs and stories, teaching her that being poor didn't mean being small. "You got hands that can work and a heart that can love," she'd say, braiding Megan's hair before school. That's more than some folks got with all their money. Megan carried her grandmother's coin purse in her pocket-worn leather. Practically empty, but it had been her mother's before that, some kind of legacy, even if it wasn't worth much to anyone else. The mezzanine was nearly empty tonight, just 2 tables. An older couple celebrating something quiet, and her breath caught. The man at table 8 had been coming in for the past 2 weeks. Always at the same time, always with 3 infant carriers that he struggled to manage with a kind of exhaustion that went bone deep. Brian something, she'd heard Stephanie call him Mr. Lawson once, using that special voice reserved for people whose credit cards didn't have limits. Tonight he looked worse than usual. Navy suit rumpled, tie loosened, and the baby striplets she'd figured out were crying in that relentless way that meant nothing was working. Not the pacifiers, not the bottles, not the gentle rocking that made his whole body move like he was on a boat. Other diners were starting to notice. The older couple's conversation had paused. Stephanie appeared at the top of the stairs, lips pressed into a line. Megan didn't think, she just moved. "Excuse me, sir," she kept her voice soft. Non-threatening, "Would you like me to hold one while you handle the others?" Brian looked up at her like she'd offered him a lifeline in the middle of the ocean. Yes, please. I don't know what's wrong tonight. They won't stop, and I've tried everything. And it's okay." Megan set down her water pitcher and knelt beside the nearest carrier. The baby inside had a pink headband, Chloe, according to the name embroidered on the blanket. Her little face was red and scrunched, fists waving at nothing. Without thinking about it, Megan lifted her out, settled her against her shoulder, and started humming. It was the song her mother used to sing on the bus rides home from work. No words Megan had ever been able to make out, just a melody that rose and fell like breathing. She'd heard it so many times it lived in her bones. She pressed her cheek against Chloe's warm forehead, swaying slightly, and kept humming. The crying stuttered, hiccuped, stopped. Megan glanced at the other 2 carriers. "May I?" Brian just nodded, looking somewhere between grateful and bewildered. She managed to get all 3 babies positioned, one against her shoulder, one in the crook of her left arm, one supported by her right, and kept up that wordless melody her mother had given her. It wasn't comfortable, and her back was definitely going to complain later, but the triplets settled like someone had flipped a switch. Grace yawned. Lily's eyes fluttered closed. Chloe made a tiny sighing sound and went boneless against Megan's uniform. "How did you?" Brian started. "Sometimes they just need to feel safe," Megan said quietly. "They're so small, everything's big and loud and scary." She knew something about that. For a moment, it was just the two of them and 3 sleeping babies in the middle of an upscale restaurant, and Megan felt something unfamiliar. Useful, seen, like maybe she wasn't just the girl who brought water and disappeared. Then she caught movement in her peripheral vision. Stephanie stood at the top of the stairs, tablet clutched in both hands, watching. The expression on her face wasn't anger exactly, it was something colder, more calculating. The look of someone who'd just watched a piece fall off the chessboard they thought they controlled. Their eyes met for half a second. Stephanie smiled. It was the kind of smile that made Megan's grandmother say, "That one's got plans, and you're not gonna like them." "Thank you," Brian whispered, carefully taking Chloe back. "I don't know what I would have done. They've been impossible all week, and their regular nanny is out sick. And I'm just..." He stopped himself, probably remembering she was staff. "Thank you. Anytime." Megan stood, her knees protesting, and picked up her water pitcher. Stephanie had already disappeared back toward the kitchen. The older couple was smiling at her. Marcus caught her eye from the kitchen window and gave her a subtle thumbs up. But as Megan headed downstairs to finish her shift, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Like she'd just stepped onto a stage without realizing there was a performance happening. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a text from Mrs. Eleanor asking if she'd remembered her jacket because the forecast called for rain. Megan smiled and texted back a quick yes. Grandma then glanced up at the mezzanine one more time. Brian was feeding the babies now, looking more relaxed than she'd seen him all week. They were awake but calm, taking their bottles without fuss. Everything seemed fine. So why did her stomach feel tight, like the moment before you realize you've made a terrible mistake? The kitchen was chaos at closing time, dishes clattering, the industrial dishwasher hissing like something alive, and Carlos shouting about someone leaving the walk-in open again. Megan kept her head down, running hot water over wine glasses and watching the soap suds catch the fluorescent light. "You made an impression tonight," Marcus said, bumping her shoulder as he passed with a stack of saucepans. "Mr. Moneybags looked like you'd performed a miracle. I just held some babies." "It's not that deep. Tell that to Stephanie." Marcus lowered his voice. "She watched you for like 5 straight minutes. Had that face she gets when she's doing math in her head." Megan's stomach tightened, but she kept scrubbing. "I was just helping. Yeah, well, watch yourself anyway." He disappeared into the back to clock out, leaving Megan alone with her thoughts and a rack of champagne flutes through the kitchen window. She could see the dining room slowly emptying. The older couple had left a generous tip on their table. She'd split it with Jenny, who'd covered most of her section while she'd dealt with the babies. Stephanie emerged from the office, blazer still perfectly pressed despite the long shift. She moved through the space like she owned it, adjusting a chair here, straightening a menu there. When her eyes landed on Megan through the window, she didn't look away. She smiled instead, not the customer service smile she used on the floor, something thinner, more controlled. Then she turned and headed upstairs to the mezzanine. Megan forced herself to focus on the dishes. 15 more minutes, and she could grab Grandma's dinner from her locker and catch the last bus home. 15 minutes of keeping her head down, and Megan, Stephanie's voice, came from the kitchen entrance. "Smooth as silk when you're finished there. I need you to do a final check of the mezzanine. Make sure table 8 didn't leave anything behind." "Yes, ma'am." But when Megan climbed those stairs 10 minutes later, drying her hands on her apron, she found more than just an empty table. Brian was still there. He'd moved to the corner booth, the 3 carriers arranged beside him like tiny sleeping pods. He was staring at his phone with the glazed expression of someone who'd stopped processing information hours ago. "Sir, I'm sorry, but we're closing." I know. He rubbed his face. "I just need 5 more minutes. They're finally asleep, and if I move them now, they'll wake up, and it'll start all over again." Megan hesitated. She should probably get Stephanie. That was protocol. But the man looked so completely exhausted that she found herself saying, 5 minutes. Instead, she started collecting glasses from nearby tables, giving him space but staying close enough to seem busy. If anyone checked, the restaurant had gone quiet. Just the distant sound of the kitchen crew finishing up and someone vacuuming downstairs. "Can I ask you something?" Brian's voice made her turn. "That song you were humming earlier, what was it?" Oh, Megan felt heat creep up her neck. "I don't know, actually. My mom used to sing it when I was little on the bus, mostly. I never knew if it had words or if she just made up the melody. It worked like magic." He glanced at the sleeping babies. "I've tried everything. White noise apps, lullabies, even classical music like the books it recommend. Nothing works. But whatever you did, sometimes they just need something that feels familiar, Megan said quietly, even if they've never heard it before. It's like, I don't know, like some sounds just feel safe. Brian studied her for a moment. Really looked at her in a way people usually didn't. Not like she was staff, like she was a person who just said something worth hearing. You're good with them. It helped raise my cousins when I was younger. Babies aren't that complicated. They just want to feel like someone's paying attention. She immediately regretted saying that. Worried it sounded like criticism, but Brian just nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed something he'd been thinking. Their mother passed away, he said suddenly, 8 months ago. Complications from the delivery. I keep thinking I'm getting better at this. And then nights like tonight happen, and I realize I have no idea what I'm doing. Megan's chest tightened. I'm so sorry. The nanny helps usually, but she's been sick this week and backup options fell through, and he stopped himself. Laughed without humor. Sorry, you don't need to hear this. You probably want to go home. It's okay. And weirdly, there was something honest about the conversation. Like they'd both stepped outside the usual script of customer and server. For what it's worth, they seemed pretty healthy and happy. You must be doing something right. They cried for 45 minutes straight tonight. All babies cry. It doesn't mean you're failing. Brian looked at her again with that same careful attention, then glanced at his watch. I should go. I've kept you long enough. He stood carefully, moving like someone approaching a bomb, and started gathering the diaper bag and carriers with the practiced efficiency of repetition. Chloe stirred, her face scrunched up, that pre-cry warning that every caretaker recognizes. Without thinking, Megan stepped forward and started humming again soft. Barely louder than breathing, she leaned over the carrier, let her shadow fall across the baby's face, and kept up that wordless melody. Chloe settled. You're a lifesaver, Brian breathed, seriously. If you ever want a different job, I'm good here, Megan said quickly. Because she'd learned that offers like that usually came with strings. But thank you, she helped him carry the gear down the stairs. Stephanie was nowhere to be seen, thank God, and held the door while he maneuvered the carriers toward his car. A black SUV that probably cost more than her grandmother's apartment. Thank you again, he said. Really, tonight would have been a disaster without you. Anytime. She meant it as a polite closing. Kind of thing you say when you're ending a conversation. But something in Brian's expression shifted, like he was filing that word away for later. The SUV pulled away, taillights disappearing into the parking lot, and Megan turned back toward the restaurant. Stephanie stood in the doorway. She wasn't blocking the entrance exactly, but her presence felt deliberate. The parking lot lights cast her face in sharp relief, all angles and calculation. That was kind of you, she said. Helping Mr. Lawson with his daughters. He just needed an extra set of hands. Stephanie's smile was thin. He's an important client. Comes from old money, the kind that opens doors. His late wife's family owns half the commercial real estate downtown. She paused, like she was choosing her next words carefully. It's good to be helpful, but it's also important to remember boundaries. We're service staff, not family friends. The words landed like a warning wrapped in corporate speak. I understand, Megan said, even though what she really understood was that she'd somehow crossed an invisible line. I'm sure you do. Stephanie stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. Go ahead and clock out. You've had a long night. Megan grabbed her things from the locker, mind racing. The kitchen was empty now, except for Carlos wiping down the prep stations. Marcus had already left. She punched out, collected Grandma's dinner, still warm, thank God, and headed for the bus stop. The night air was cool, carrying the smell of rain that hadn't started falling yet. Megan pulled out her phone to check the schedule and saw a text from Mrs. Eleanor. Don't forget your jacket. Baby girl, weather's turning. She smiled despite everything and texted back that she'd remembered. The bus came 12 minutes later. Megan claimed a seat near the back, hugging the takeout bag for warmth, and stared out at the city lights sliding past. She should have felt tired. It had been a long shift, longer than usual with all the drama upstairs, but instead she felt unsettled. Something about Stephanie's smile, the way she'd mentioned Brian's late wife's family. Like she was reminding Megan of exactly how far out of her league this whole situation was. The calculated warmth in her voice that didn't match the coldness in her eyes. Remember boundaries. Megan had spent her whole life understanding boundaries, knowing which neighborhoods were safe and which weren't, knowing which questions you could ask and which ones would get doors slammed in your face, knowing exactly how invisible you needed to be to get through the day. But tonight, for just a few minutes, she'd stopped being invisible and Stephanie had noticed. 3 days passed like normal. Megan worked her shifts, brought her grandmother dinner, and tried not to think about Stephanie's warning. Brian came back twice, both times to the mezzanine, both times with the triplets. He'd nod at her if their paths crossed, sometimes mouth a quiet thank you when one of the babies fussed, and she'd hum that melody while passing with a water pitcher. Small moments, nothing that should have mattered, but Stephanie watched on Thursday night. Megan noticed the labels on the supply shelf had been rearranged on Friday. She got written up for a mistake on table 6's order, except she'd never served table 6. Marcus pulled her aside during her break. "Someone's setting you up," he said, keeping his voice low. "Jenny said she saw Stephanie in the storage room yesterday, messing with the inventory logs. And that write-up, the handwriting doesn't match your station tickets. What am I supposed to do? Accuse the manager of forging paperwork? No. But watch your back, something's coming." He was right. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of autumn rain that made the city smell like wet pavement and regret. Megan showed up early, hair pulled back tight, uniform as presentable as she could manage. The restaurant was busy, reservations backed up, people waiting in the bar area nursing drinks. Stephanie appeared beside her in the staff hallway, tablet in hand. "I need you on the mezzanine tonight. We're short-staffed upstairs, and Mr. Lawson specifically requested someone experienced with children." Megan's stomach twisted. "He requested me. He asked if the girl who helped with the babies last week was working." Stephanie's smile was pleasant. "Professional. I told him you'd be happy to accommodate. You don't mind, do you?" It wasn't really a question. "No, ma'am. Perfect. He'll be here at 7. In the meantime, there are some prep tasks that need handling." She handed Megan a handwritten list. "The beverage station upstairs needs restocking. And we're running low on the specialty formula we keep for clients with infants. There's a shipment in the storage room's second shelf, thermal bags. Bring 3 up to the mezzanine pantry." Megan scanned the list. Everything seemed straightforward except we stock formula for situations exactly like this. Mr. Lawson's nanny called ahead to request it. Apparently the girls are particular about brands. Stephanie's tone suggested this was a perfectly normal request. "The bags are labeled. Just follow the instructions." The storage room was cramped and smelled like cardboard and cleaning solution. Megan found the thermal bags on the second shelf. Right where Stephanie said they'd be, they were labeled with masking tape dates. Times, temperature instructions, professional, legitimate looking. She carried them upstairs carefully, loaded the mezzanine pantry, and spent the next hour managing tables. The dinner rush was intense, every seat filled. The kitchen barely keeping pace. Brian arrived at 7:15 with the triplets in their carriers, looking as exhausted as ever. "Thank you for being here," he said when she brought water. "The girls have been impossible today. I think they're coming down with something." Megan glanced at the carriers. All 3 babies were fussy, not crying yet, but working up to it. Their faces were flushed, eyes watery. "Have you taken their temperature? Slightly elevated, but nothing alarming. The pediatrician said it might just be teething." He ran a hand through his hair. "I'm hoping they'll settle enough to let me eat something. I haven't had a real meal in 2 days. I'll bring the bottles in a few minutes." "Stephanie said you arranged for special formula." The nanny did. "Yeah, they're regular brand." Relief crossed his face. "That'll help. They've been refusing everything else today." Megan headed to the pantry and retrieved one of the thermal bags. Inside were 3 bottles already prepared, still warm. The efficiency of it was impressive, like someone had timed it perfectly. She was halfway back to Brian's table when the crying started. Not fussing, full-throated wailing, all 3 babies at once. That desperate sound that made everyone in the restaurant turn and look. Brian was on his feet trying to soothe them, but nothing was working. Other diners were starting to murmur. A woman at table 9 said something to her husband behind her hand. Stephanie materialized beside Megan like she'd been waiting in the wings. "This isn't working." Her voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "The other guests are complaining. We need to handle this discreetly. I can try. There's a service bathroom on this level. Take the bottles there and help Mr. Lawson get the girls settled. Once they're calm, he can bring them back to his table." Stephanie pressed a key into Megan's palm. "It's more private. Better for everyone." It made sense, sort of. The babies were getting louder. Brian looked like he was about to have a breakdown. And the entire mezzanine had gone quiet in that awful way where everyone's pretending not to stare. "Okay," Megan said. She collected the carrier's god. They were heavy, and led Brian toward the hallway where the service bathroom was tucked between storage closets. It was small, institutional, with harsh lighting and a chemical smell. A changing table bolted to the wall, a utility sink, a toilet. "I'll help get them settled," Megan told Brian. You should eat while your food's still hot. I promise they'll be okay. Brian hesitated, looking between her and the babies. Are you sure? Positive? I've done this before. The lie came easily because she needed him to leave. Needed to not feel like she was making things worse. Go. 5 minutes, he nodded gratefully and headed back toward his table. Megan pushed the stroller inside, followed by the bottles and her own frayed nerves. The babies were escalating. Chloe's face was bright red. Grace was hiccuping between sobs. Lily's eyes were squeezed shut like she was trying to cry herself into another dimension. She closed the door. The lock clicked from the outside. It took her a full 3 seconds to process what had just happened. She reached for the handle, turned it. Nothing. The door was solid, heavy, the kind installed in commercial buildings because they were secure. Hello, she knocked, not wanting to alarm the babies more, but feeling panic start to claw up her throat. Stephanie, the door stuck. Silence. She knocked harder. Hey, someone. The lock isn't working. Nothing except the crying and the hum of the industrial ventilation system overhead. Megan pulled out her phone. No signal. The bathroom was basically a concrete box. Of course, there was no signal. Okay, she whispered to herself. Okay. Think. The babies were getting worse. Their cries had shifted from upset to desperate, that sound that meant something was really wrong. Megan turned to the thermal bag and pulled out the bottles, and that's when she smelled it. Sweet. Too sweet. With a metallic undertone that made her gag. This wasn't right. She uncapped one bottle, and the smell intensified. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her head. Trust your gut, baby girl. It's the one thing that never lies. Megan's hands started shaking as pieces clicked together, the labels that had been moved, the write-up she hadn't earned, Stephanie's calculated smile, the way she'd insisted on sending Megan in here. Alone with babies who were clearly having some kind of reaction, someone had tampered with these bottles, and she'd just been locked in here with the evidence. The babies' cries were like nails on glass. But Megan forced herself to think past the noise. She set the bottles on the edge of the sink and took inventory of what she had to work with. A locked bathroom, 3 suffering infants, a phone with no signal, and her own rapidly spiraling panic. No, stop, focus. She'd survived worse than this, growing up in her grandmother's neighborhood. You learned to solve problems with whatever you had on hand when the heat got shut off in January. You boiled water on the stove and slept in layers when the corner store wouldn't cash your grandmother's check. You walked 2 miles to the one that would. You didn't wait for rescue, you figured it out. Megan started with the evidence. The thermal bag had a label printed on masking tape date. Time, temperature instructions. But the date was wrong. Today was the 16th. And the label said the 14th. Someone had changed it. Not carefully either. You could see where the old tape had been peeled away, leaving residue. She pulled out her phone and started taking pictures, even without signal. The label, the bottles, the formula inside with its sickly sweet smell, the thermal bag's interior showing condensation patterns that didn't match something prepared fresh today. In the trash can beside the toilet, she found a cap from a small medical bottle, the kind that held liquid medication. It had been tossed carelessly, probably by whoever stocked the bathroom last. Megan photographed it, then used a paper towel to fish it out and examine it closer. No label, no identifying marks, just a clear plastic cap that could have held anything. Behind the mirror, the kind that swung open to reveal a storage cabinet, she found hospital-grade first aid supplies and stuck to the back of the mirror's frame a barcode sticker. She peeled it off carefully and held it to the light. The numbers didn't match any of the supply codes she'd seen in the restaurant's inventory system. Someone had planted this, set up a whole staging area. Her hands shook as she opened the voice recording app on her phone and hit record. My name is Megan Torres. It's Saturday, October 16th, approximately 7:45 p.m. I'm locked in the service bathroom on the mezzanine level of Mancini's restaurant. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I was asked by manager Stephanie Hayes to bring 3 bottles of formula here for Brian Lawson's infant daughters, Chloe, Grace, and Lily. The bottles smell wrong, sweet, and metallic. The labels on the thermal bag show the wrong date. I found an unlabeled medication cap in the trash and a barcode that doesn't match our inventory system. The babies are showing signs of distress, flushed faces, excessive crying, possible fever. I believe these bottles have been tampered with. She described everything she could see, every detail that might matter later, speaking over the crying that was starting to shred her composure. She finished. She saved the recording and started a new one documenting the timeline when Stephanie had given her the assignment. What Brian had said about the nanny calling ahead, how the door had locked from the outside, evidence. She needed evidence because her word alone wouldn't be worth anything against Stephanie's. The babies were getting worse. Chloe had started a high-pitched keening that meant real pain. Grace was thrashing in her carrier. Lily had gone quiet in that scary way that sometimes meant a baby was too exhausted to cry anymore. Megan's training from helping with her cousins kicked in. She turned on the utility sink's hot water and let it run until steam rose. Then found the electric water dispenser mounted on the wall, the kind that dispensed both hot and cold water for tea or instant soup. She filled the sink with hot water, carefully washed each bottle with soap, rinsed them 3 times. Then filled them with the hot water from the dispenser to sterilize them. While the bottles sat, she went to the babies. "Hey, sweethearts, I know it hurts." She lifted Chloe first, settled her against her shoulder, and started humming that wordless melody her mother had given her. The one that lived in her bones and apparently worked magic on these specific 3 humans. Da-da-dum-dum-dum-da-da. Chloe's crying hitched, stuttered. Her little body stayed tense, but the volume dropped. "That's it, you're okay. I promised you're okay." Megan kept humming while she checked the dispenser's temperature setting. It had a child safety feature that kept it from getting hot enough to burn, which meant she could use it to warm clean water to body temperature. She dumped the sterilizing water, filled 1 bottle with the warmed water, and measured in formula powder from the emergency supply in the first aid cabinet. The real stuff, still sealed, with an expiration date 6 months out. She tested it on her wrist, the way her grandmother had taught her, warm but not hot. Then she offered it to Chloe. The baby latched on immediately, sucking with the desperation of someone who'd been denied too long. Within seconds, her whole body relaxed. "There you go," Megan whispered. "There you go, baby girl." She repeated the process for Grace and Lily, humming the whole time, creating a rhythm that seemed to cut through their distress. One by one, they settled. The crying didn't stop completely. They were still uncomfortable, probably had mild stomach aches from whatever they'd been given, but the desperate edge faded. Megan checked her phone again. Still no signal. She tried the door one more time. Still locked. Okay, she needed to get out of here. And she needed to do it in a way that would force someone to come help. Waiting quietly wasn't working. Being polite wasn't working. Nobody was checking on her, because nobody was supposed to check on her. She studied the bathroom with fresh eyes. Industrial toilet, utility sink, changing table, and the sprinkler system. There was a sensor mounted in the ceiling, the kind that activated if it detected heat or smoke, and next to it, a manual pull station behind a plastic cover. Fire alarms brought everyone running. Fire alarms couldn't be ignored, but she needed to be smart about this. She positioned the stroller in the driest corner of the bathroom, as far from the sprinkler head as possible. Then she used towels from the dispenser to create a nest around the babies, protecting them from direct water exposure. The bottles went into the sink, covered with a plastic bag. Her heart hammered as she approached the sprinkler control. This was going to cause chaos. Probably ruin her chances of keeping this job. Definitely make her look crazy to anyone who didn't understand what was happening. But those babies had been poisoned, and she was trapped in here with them. And someone on the other side of that door wanted her to take the fall. Megan thought about her grandmother, about her mother singing on the bus, about every time in her life someone had tried to make her invisible, tried to convince her that her voice didn't matter. She pulled the fire alarm. Nothing happened for about 3 seconds. Just enough time for her to wonder if she'd made a catastrophic mistake, and then the sprinkler erupted. Water poured from the ceiling in a freezing deluge. The alarm shrieked, a sound designed to be impossible to ignore. Megan threw herself over the stroller, creating a human shield, and kept humming through chattering teeth, even as cold water soaked through her uniform and plastered her hair to her skull. The babies startled but didn't cry. Maybe they were too exhausted. Maybe the humming was still working. Maybe they knew somehow that she was trying to save them. Footsteps pounded in the hallway, voices shouting over the alarm. Someone hit the door hard enough to rattle the frame. "Someone's in there. Get it open. Where's the key? Break it down." The door shuddered under impact. Once, twice. On the third hit, the lock gave way, and the door crashed inward. Brian stood in the doorway, soaked from the hallway sprinklers, eyes wild. Behind him, a security guard, other staff members, and Stephanie. Her face was a mask of perfect shock and concern. "Oh my God, Megan, what did you do?" Water streamed down Megan's face. plastering her hair to her skull, but she didn't move from her position shielding the babies. The alarm kept shrieking, a sound that drilled into her bones and made thinking nearly impossible. Brian pushed past the security guard and reached for the stroller. "Are they okay? What happened?" "They're fine," Megan said, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "They're safe now, safe." Stephanie's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "You locked yourself in here with 3 infants and triggered a fire alarm. The entire restaurant is evacuating." Megan forced herself to stand, water dripping from her uniform in steady streams. Her whole body was shaking from cold, from adrenaline, from the sheer weight of what she was about to do. Behind Stephanie, she could see other staff members craning their necks to look. Phones out, recording. A few customers had made it upstairs before security cleared them. This was it, the moment where she either proved what had happened or got destroyed trying. "I didn't lock myself in," she had to shout to be heard. "Someone locked me in from the outside. And these bottles," she grabbed the plastic bag from the sink, held up the original bottles with their wrong-dated labels. "These were tampered with. That's why the girls were crying. Someone poisoned them." The word hung in the air like a grenade. Brian's face went white. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about formula that smells like chemicals. Labels with the wrong dates, medication caps in the trash." Megan's voice gained strength even as her hands shook. "I have photos. I have recordings. Something was wrong with what I was told to feed them. So I made new bottles from the emergency supplies. That's when someone locked me in here." "That's insane," Stephanie said, and her tone was perfect. Shocked, concerned, just the right amount of disbelief. "Brian, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was unstable. She seemed perfectly fine during her shifts." "Then check the cameras," Megan interrupted. She looked directly at the security guard, a middle-aged man whose name badge read Torres no relation, but she took it as a sign anyway. "There are cameras in the hallway, right? And in the kitchen prep areas. Check them. You'll see who brought these bottles up. You'll see who locked this door." The security guard glanced at Stephanie, then at Brian, clearly trying to figure out who had authority here. "Please," Brian said quietly. His voice had gone flat, but his hands gripped the stroller handle so hard his knuckles were white. "Check the cameras now." Something in his tone made it clear this wasn't a request. Stephanie's smile flickered. "Just for a second," but Megan saw it, of course, though I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. "Megan's been under a lot of stress lately." "The cameras," Brian repeated. "Now, and I want to see the bottles tested. All of them. The ones she says were tampered with and the new ones she made." The security guard nodded and spoke into his radio. Within minutes, the alarm was silenced, the sudden quiet almost more jarring than the noise had been. Water still dripped from the ceiling, creating a steady rhythm against the tile floor. The sprinklers had finally stopped, leaving everything soaked and smelling of wet metal and chemicals. 2 more security personnel arrived, along with the restaurant owner, a thin man in his 60s named Michael Chun, who looked like he'd aged 5 years in the last 5 minutes. He took one look at the scene and said, "Conference room, everyone, now." The walk through the restaurant was a nightmare. Water everywhere, customers clustered in the bar area looking annoyed and curious. Staff whispering to each other. Megan was soaked to the bone, still shaking, very aware that she looked like either a victim or a criminal, depending on who was telling the story. Marcus caught her eye from near the kitchen. He mouthed, "What happened?" She shook her head. "Not now." The conference room was small, dominated by a table scattered with invoices and menu printings. Someone brought towels. Brian wrapped one around each baby, checking them over with the careful precision of someone who'd been operating on fear for too long. They were quiet now, drowsy from full bellies and exhaustion, but alive. "Safe?" Megan wrapped herself in a towel and tried to stop her teeth from chattering. "All right," Michael Chun said, looking at everyone assembled like he was about to referee a boxing match he never wanted to see. "Someone explain what the hell just happened to my restaurant." "I'd like to know that too," Brian said. His voice was still quiet, but there was steel underneath. "Because if someone tried to hurt my daughters, no one tried to hurt anyone." Stephanie cut in smoothly. "This is clearly a case of miscommunication that got out of hand. Megan is new. She's been struggling with some of the protocols. And I think the stress of the situation caused her to panic. And I have proof," Megan said. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "Photos on my phone, audio recordings, physical evidence in that bathroom." She pulled out her phone, miraculously still working despite the water, and opened the photo gallery. The images were there. The mislabeled thermal bag, the medication cap, the suspicious barcode. The original bottles with their chemical smell documented in her voice memo. I also want to know, Megan continued, looking directly at Michael, why there were bottles prepared ahead of time for Mr. Lawson's daughters when he didn't request them until today. How did someone know to have formula ready before he made the reservation? Stephanie's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. The nanny called ahead, she said. I told you that. Then there should be a record of that call. Megan turned to Michael. Your phone system logs everything, right? Check. Michael pulled out his phone and started typing. The silence stretched like taffy while they waited. Brian checked Lily's forehead, murmuring something soft. The security guard shifted his weight. Stephanie's perfectly manicured nails tapped once against her tablet, then stopped. There's no incoming call from any nanny, Michael said slowly. Not today, not this week. That can't be right, Stephanie said. I took the call myself. Maybe it didn't log properly. It logs everything, Michael said flatly. Every call, every extension, timestamps. It's for liability purposes. The air in the room changed. Let's see the camera footage, Brian said, from the prep area and the hallway. I want to see who brought those bottles up and who locked that door. The security guard pulled up the feed on his tablet. Everyone crowding around to watch. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. There was the prep area. There was Stephanie, alone, handling the thermal bags, checking labels, pulling something from her pocket. A small bottle, clear, unlabeled, and adding liquid to the formula mixture. The timestamp showed 30 minutes before Brian arrived. That's... Stephanie started and the footage continued. Showed her carrying the bags upstairs, giving them to Megan with instructions. Then later, the hallway camera caught Stephanie walking to the bathroom door after Megan had gone inside, caught her hand on the lock, caught her walking away, caught her pulling out her phone and typing something. I'd like to see your phone, Michael said quietly. Right now, Stephanie's mask finally cracked. This is ridiculous. I don't have to. You do if you want to keep your job. Michael's voice had gone cold. Phone, now, or I call the police and let them get a warrant. For a long moment, Stephanie just stood there. Then slowly, she pulled out her phone and handed it over. Michael scrolled through recent messages. His face went pale. You texted Mr. Lawson saying his nanny was concerned about Megan being alone with the babies, that she seemed unstable and might try to take them somewhere unauthorized. Brian's head snapped up. I never got that message because I blocked it, Michael said. Still scrolling, it's in your drafts. You wrote it but didn't send it. Why? Stephanie said nothing. Megan's brain was trying to process everything at once, but one thought kept pushing through. She was going to frame me, not just for incompetence. For attempted kidnapping, someone called the police, Brian said. His voice shook. Now, the police arrived in 12 minutes, 2 uniforms first, followed by a detective who introduced herself as Ramos and looked like she'd been interrupted during dinner. The restaurant had transformed into a crime scene. Yellow tape cordoning off the mezzanine bathroom, evidence bags appearing as officers documented everything Megan had found. Stephanie sat in a chair near the window, spine straight, hands folded in her lap like she was waiting for a doctor's appointment. Her expression had settled into something between resignation and defiance. But she hadn't said a word since Michael found the draft message. Let me make sure I understand, Detective Ramos said, looking between Megan and Brian. You're alleging that Ms. Hayes intentionally contaminated infant formula, locked you in a bathroom with 3 babies, and was planning to accuse you of attempted kidnapping. Hearing it laid out like that made it sound insane. Megan felt her conviction waver. Maybe she had panicked. Maybe she'd connected dots that weren't really there. But then she looked at the babies sleeping in their carriers, at Brian's haunted expression, at Stephanie's carefully blank face. Yes, Megan said. That's exactly what happened. That's quite an accusation. Of evidence. Megan pulled up the photos on her phone again. The voice recordings showed the timeline she'd documented, and the security footage shows everything. Detective Ramos examined the footage on the security guard's tablet, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she turned to Stephanie. Ms. Hayes, you have the right to remain silent, but I'd like to hear your side of this. Stephanie finally looked up, and when she spoke, her voice was different, smaller, vulnerable in a way Megan had never heard before. I made a mistake, she said quietly, but not the one you think. Everyone waited. Mr. Lawson's daughters have been difficult lately, crying constantly, refusing bottles, keeping other customers from enjoying their meals. It was becoming a problem. She looked at Brian with something that might have been sympathy. You're a good father, but you're overwhelmed. Anyone can see that. I just wanted to help by drugging my children. Brian's voice was ice, not drugging. Soothing, Stephanie's tone shifted, becoming more confident. Like she was finding her footing. It was just a mild sedative, the kind pediatricians recommend for fussy babies. I thought if they could just sleep peacefully for one meal, you could eat in peace and they could get the rest they needed. That's all I wanted. To help, it was masterful, Megan had to admit. The way Stephanie was reframing everything, making it sound like concern instead of conspiracy. Then why did you lock Megan in the bathroom? Detective Ramos asked. I didn't. Not intentionally. Stephanie turned to Megan with an expression of such perfect contrition that if Megan hadn't seen the camera footage, she might have believed it. The lock is faulty, it sticks sometimes. I thought you'd be able to get out. When I heard the alarm, I panicked. I knew how this would look, and the message accusing Megan of being unstable. I was scared. I thought, Stephanie's voice caught, I thought she'd figured out what I'd done and was going to try to take the babies somewhere to test them. To prove I'd given them something I knew that would destroy my career. She trailed off, shaking her head. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just wanted to protect myself. The room was silent except for the sound of rain starting outside, pattering against the windows. You're saying this was all a misunderstanding? Detective Ramos's tone was skeptical. I'm saying I made a terrible error in judgment. I gave those babies something without their father's permission because I thought I was helping. When it went wrong, I panicked and tried to cover it up. But I never intended to hurt anyone, and I certainly never planned to frame Megan for kidnapping. I didn't even send that message because you knew the cameras would catch you, Brian said softly. His hands were shaking. You knew if you sent it, and I called the police. They'd review the footage and see what you'd really done. Stephanie didn't answer. What did you give them? Brian's voice cracked. What exactly did you put in their bottles? A small dose of antihistamine. It's safe. People use it for children all the time for allergies. It just makes them drowsy. The dosage was well within the recommended range for their weight. Stephanie looked at him earnestly. I would never hurt children. I was trying to help. You were trying to control, Michael said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at the restaurant owner, who was still scrolling through something on his phone. His face grim. I've been going through our records. Megan isn't the first staff member you've targeted. 3 servers quit in the last 6 months. All of them after incidents where inventory went missing or orders got mysteriously mixed up. All of them after you filed complaints. Stephanie's mask cracked slightly. And 2 months ago, Michael continued, we had another client with an infant who complained that their child seemed unusually sleepy after dining here. We comped their meal and moved on. But now I'm wondering, that's speculation. Stephanie cut in. Is it? Michael pulled up an email chain. This is from the supplier. They've been flagging unusual orders of specialty formula and pharmaceutical-grade supplements for months. Orders that you placed that don't match any documented client requests. The evidence was piling up, piece by piece, building a picture that was uglier than Megan had imagined. This wasn't just about tonight, this was a pattern. I want a lawyer, Stephanie said flatly. Good idea, Detective Ramos replied. She nodded to one of the uniformed officers, who stepped forward with handcuffs. Stephanie Hayes, you're under arrest for child endangerment, reckless endangerment, unlawful restraint, and tampering with consumer products. You have the right to remain silent. The Miranda rights continued as Stephanie was escorted out. She didn't look at anyone as she left, her perfect posture finally collapsing into something defeated. Megan sat down hard in the nearest chair, her legs suddenly refusing to hold her weight. It was over, actually over. She'd been vindicated. But then why did she feel like she was going to throw up, Miss Torres? Detective Ramos crouched beside her chair. You all right? I think so. Megan's voice failed. You did good, the detective said quietly. That evidence you documented saved those babies' lives, and probably prevented a lot of legal nightmare for yourself. Smart thinking with the recordings. I grew up in a neighborhood where nobody believed you without proof, Megan said. The words came out flat, distant, like someone else was saying them. Well, that instinct saved you tonight. Ramos stood. We'll need your full statement, and you'll probably have to testify eventually. But for now, go home, get dry, get warm. Brian appeared beside her, still holding Lily while the other 2 babies slept in their carriers. I need to take them to the emergency room. Just to be safe. Make sure there's no lasting effects, of course, Megan said. Will you? He stopped. Start it again. Would you come with us? They respond to you, and his voice broke. I could use someone who actually knows what they're doing. It should have felt like a victory, being asked, being needed, but Megan just felt exhausted. Okay, she said. Anyway, let me get my things. Marcus found her in the locker room, grabbing her coat and her grandmother's dinner, cold now, probably ruined. Holy shit. he breathed. Are you okay? I don't know. You're a hero. You know that. You saved those kids. I just did what anyone would do. No, Marcus's voice was firm. Most people would have done what they were told and let it happen. You didn't. That matters, Megan nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Outside, the rain had settled into a steady drizzle. Brian's SUV was warm and dry, the babies secured in their car seats. Megan climbed into the passenger seat, still wrapped in a towel, uniform still damp, and watched the city lights blur past as they drove toward the hospital. Thank you, Brian said eventually. I know I keep saying it, but you don't have to. Yes, I do, if you hadn't figured it out. He couldn't finish the sentence. Megan looked at the babies in the rearview mirror. 3 tiny humans who'd been caught in someone else's twisted power play. 3 lives that had almost been destroyed because Stephanie couldn't handle the threat of being replaced, of being less important. They're going to be okay, Megan said. She wasn't sure if she was reassuring Brian or herself. Because of you, the hospital lights appeared ahead. Emergency room entrance glowing like a beacon, and as they pulled into the parking lot, Megan finally let herself believe it. They were safe. She'd done it. The emergency room was the kind of organized chaos that made restaurants look calm by comparison. Bright lights, the smell of antiseptic and fear, monitors beeping in competing rhythms. A nurse took one look at Brian carrying 3 infants and immediately ushered them past the waiting area into a private examination room. Possible ingestion of unknown sedative, Brian explained, his voice taking on that clipped tone people use when they're barely holding it together. Antihistamine, we think. But we're not certain of the dose or type. 2 pediatric nurses descended on the babies with practiced efficiency, taking vitals, asking questions, documenting everything. Megan hung back near the door, suddenly aware that she didn't belong here. She was just the waitress who'd happened to be there. But every time she moved toward the exit, Brian would glance at her with an expression that said, "Please don't leave." So she stayed. "Heart rates are good," one nurse announced. Temperature slightly elevated, but coming down. How long ago was ingestion? Maybe 2 hours. We're not exactly sure when the contaminated bottles were prepared. The doctor who arrived was young. South Asian, with a kind of steady calm that made you trust her immediately. Dr. Patel, according to her badge. She examined each baby methodically, shining lights in their eyes, listening to their hearts, checking their reflexes. "They're responsive," she said finally, a little drowsy. "But that could be normal tiredness combined with whatever was given. We'll run blood work to identify what they ingested and make sure there's no organ involvement. But honestly, they look okay. Someone did a good job keeping them stable." She looked directly at Megan when she said it. That was her. Brian said, "She's the one who figured out something was wrong and made clean bottles. Quick thinking, doctor." Patel said, "You potentially saved them from a much worse outcome. Antihistamines can cause serious respiratory depression in infants, especially if the dose is wrong." The words hit Megan like ice water. She'd known it was bad. But hearing a doctor confirm how bad made her knees weak all over again. "Can I?" She gestured vaguely toward the hallway. "I need some air." Outside the exam room, she found a chair and collapsed into it, head between her knees, trying to remember how to breathe. People walked past, other patients, staff, someone pushing a wheelchair, but they all felt distant, like she was watching them through glass. Respiratory depression in infants. She could have been too late, could have not figured it out, could have just done what she was told and fed those babies poison. And hey, Marcus appeared from nowhere, holding 2 cups of terrible vending machine coffee. "Thought you might be here. Michael told me which hospital. How did you? Took an Uber. Figured you could use backup." He sat beside her, pressed 1 cup into her hands. "Drink." It looked like you were about to pass out. The coffee was awful burnt and too sweet, but it was warm, and that helped. Megan took a sip and felt her brain start working again. "Michael fired her," Marcus said. Officially, security escorted her out in handcuffs and everything. The whole staff saw it. "Good, there's more." Marcus pulled out his phone, showed her a group chat. The restaurant staff thread was exploding with messages. "Turns out Stephanie's been pulling this shit for years. People are coming forward now, inventory that went missing and got blamed on them. Schedules that mysteriously changed. Customers who complained about things they swear they never said." Megan scrolled through the messages. Jenny describing how she got written up for spilling wine that she knew she hadn't spilled. Carlos talking about a missing shipment of steaks that somehow ended up being his fault. 3 different servers mentioning times when Stephanie had sent them to handle situations that turned out to be setups. "She was building cases against people," Megan said slowly. creating paper trails so she could fire them whenever she wanted, or force them to quit so she didn't have to pay severance. Michael's reviewing everything now. He's talking about bringing in an outside investigator. Marcus took a sip of his own coffee. He broke something open tonight, something that needed breaking. They sat in silence for a while, the emergency room sounds washing over them. Eventually, Brian emerged from the exam room, looking exhausted but relieved. "They're going to be fine," he said. Blood work came back. It was diphenhydramine, just like Stephanie claimed, but the dose was on the high end of safe, and if Megan hadn't diluted it by making new bottles. He didn't finish the sentence. "They want to keep them for observation overnight. Make sure there are no delayed reactions, but the doctor said they should be completely fine." "That's good," Megan managed. "I called my lawyer," Brian continued, sitting down beside them. "He's already filing reports with the health department and the police. Stephanie's looking at serious charges, child endangerment, criminal negligence, possibly attempted assault. And the restaurant's going to get sued, which honestly they should. Their hiring practices clearly failed. If she was doing this for years, I'm sorry," Megan said automatically. "Why are you apologizing? You saved my daughters. She struggled to find words. "I'm sorry this happened to you. That someone you trusted would—" "I didn't trust her," Brian said quietly. "I barely knew her name. She was just the manager who made sure my table was ready and the babies had a quiet corner. I trusted the system, the credentials, the professional Polish." He laughed bitterly. "Shows what that's worth." A nurse poked her head out. "Mr. Lawson, the girls are settled if you want to come sit with them. I'll be right there." He stood, then turned back to Megan. "Will you still be here in the morning? I'd like to talk to you. About a lot of things. Actually, I can be after he left." Marcus raised an eyebrow. He's got that look. "What look?" "The I'm about to offer you a job look." "Probably as the nanny, if I had to guess." "That's ridiculous, isn't it? You saved his kids' lives and they clearly love you. You're good with them." "And he just learned the hard way that fancy credentials don't mean shit," Marcus shrugged. "I'm just saying, be ready for the offer." Megan's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Eleanor asking where she was. She'd completely forgotten to call. She quickly typed out a response. "Long story. I'm okay. At the hospital, but not hurt. We'll explain when I get home." The response came immediately. "Hospital? What happens? Are you safe?" "Yes, I promise. Everything's fine now. I love you." She pocketed the phone and leaned back against the uncomfortable plastic chair through the window. She could see the city lights blurred by rain. Somewhere out there, Stephanie was probably sitting in a holding cell, her perfect life crumbling. Michael was probably dealing with lawyers and insurance companies and press inquiries. The restaurant staff was probably still buzzing with gossip and revelation, and Megan was here, in a hospital emergency room, drinking terrible coffee with her coworker, while 3 babies she barely knew slept safely in the next room. "You know what's weird?" she said. "What?" "This morning, my biggest worry was whether I'd make enough tips to cover Grandma's prescription refill next week. Now I'm a witness in a criminal case and apparently some kind of hero. You are a hero. I just did what needed doing." "That's literally what heroes do," Marcus said. "They see what needs doing and they do it, even when it's hard or scary or costs them something." "You think Superman sits around going, 'I'm not a hero. I just happened to catch that falling plane, despite everything'?" Megan laughed. It felt good, like releasing pressure from a valve that had been sealed too tight. "Come on," Marcus said, standing. "Let me buy you real food from the cafeteria. Hospital coffee is one thing, but nobody should face the night on an empty stomach." They walked down the corridor together, past rooms full of other people's emergencies and tragedies, and Megan thought about her mother singing on the bus, about her grandmother teaching her to be strong even when you had nothing, about the coin purse in her pocket that held more value than its weight in leather. She'd survived tonight. More than survived, she'd won. And tomorrow, when the sun came up, she'd figure out what came next. Morning arrived with harsh sunlight through the hospital windows and the smell of industrial cleaning solution. Megan had dozed in the waiting room chair, Marcus eventually going home around 3 a.m. after making her promise to text when she left. Her neck ached, her uniform had dried into uncomfortable wrinkles, but the babies were safe. That was all that mattered. Brian emerged from the observation room at 7. Looking like he hadn't slept either. "They're being discharged. Clean bill of health, doctor." Patel said whatever was in their systems has metabolized completely. "That's great. Can we talk?" "There's a coffee shop on the first floor." Coffee, not the vending machine stuff. They left the babies with a nurse who promised to call if anything changed, and found a small cafe near the main entrance. Brian ordered 2 cappuccinos and a basket of pastries that neither of them touched. "I owe you everything," he started. "You don't." please. Let me finish. He wrapped both hands around his cup. I've been going through the motions for 8 months. Since Rachel died, just trying to survive each day, telling myself that as long as the girls were fed and clean and had a roof over their heads, I was doing enough, but I wasn't paying attention. Not really. I trusted systems and credentials and professional appearances because it was easier than trusting my own judgment. You were grieving. You still are. That's not an excuse for almost getting my daughters killed. His voice cracked. Stephanie was in my house. She had keys. She picked up supplies, helped coordinate the nanny schedule. I gave her access to everything because she seemed competent and I was drowning. And the whole time she was, he stopped, shook his head. You saved them. You, a person I didn't know, who had every reason to just do what she was told and look the other way. I couldn't look away. Most people would have. Most people do. Brian pulled out an envelope from his jacket. This is from my lawyer. It's a formal statement for your records, documenting everything that happened and confirming that you acted appropriately throughout. You'll need it for the legal proceedings. Megan took the envelope, felt the weight of official letterhead inside. There's something else, Brian continued. My regular nanny, the one who was supposedly sick, she quit this morning. Called me at 6 a.m. to say she couldn't work for someone whose management choices put children at risk, which is fair, honestly. But it leaves me in a terrible position. Here it comes, Megan thought. The job offer Marcus predicted. I know this is sudden, and you probably have no interest in leaving the restaurant. Would you consider working for me as the girl's nanny, full-time, benefits, salary that's actually livable? You'd have your own room in the house, flexible schedule, and I promise I'd be a better employer than I was a client. The offer hung in the air between them. It was generous, more than generous. Life-changing, really. No more struggling to make rent, no more splitting tips, no more wondering if she'd have enough for her grandmother's medications. But I need to think about it, Megan said carefully. That's a huge change, and I don't want to make a decision when everything's still. She gestured vaguely. Like this, of course. Take all the time you need. He pushed a business card across the table. My personal number. Call me when you've decided. No pressure either way. They finished their coffee in companionable silence, then headed back upstairs. The girls were awake, making those soft cooing sounds that babies make when they're content. Chloe reached for Megan immediately, and she found herself picking up the baby without thinking, settling her against her shoulder while humming that wordless melody. They know you, Brian said softly. They feel safe with you. It would be easy to say yes, to step into this ready-made life where she'd be valued and paid fairly and could finally stop worrying about money, where she could sing to these babies every day and watch them grow up. But something held her back. Maybe it was the memory of her grandmother saying, "Don't make big decisions when your heart's still racing." Maybe it was the knowledge that accepting would feel like she was being rewarded for trauma, which wasn't the same as being valued for who she was. Or maybe she just needed to go home and sleep for 12 hours before her brain worked properly again. I should go, Megan said, carefully transferring Chloe back. My grandmother's probably worried sick, of course. Thank you again for everything. The Uber ride home cost more than she should have spent, but she was too exhausted to face the bus. The city looked different in morning light, cleaner somehow, less threatening, people heading to work, to school, to whatever normal looked like for them. Mrs. Eleanor was waiting on the apartment steps, still in her robe, face creased with worry. The moment she saw Megan, she rushed forward and pulled her into a hug that smelled like lavender and home. Child, what happened? You said hospital and then nothing for hours. I'm okay, Grandma, I promise. It's a long story. They went inside, and over tea that was too hot and toast that was too burnt because Mrs. Eleanor kept getting distracted. Megan told her everything. The babies, the bottles, the locked bathroom, the fire alarm, Stephanie's arrest, all of it. Mrs. Eleanor listened without interrupting, her face cycling through shock and anger and pride and fear. When Megan finished, her grandmother took both her hands. You did good. Baby girl, your mama would be so proud, would she? Lord, yes. You saw something wrong, and you fixed it. Even when it cost you, even when you were scared. That's who we are. That's who she raised you to be. I got offered a job, Megan said, by the father, to be the nanny for those babies. Good money, really good money. Then why do you look so uncertain? Megan tried to find the words. I don't know if I'm taking it because I want it or because I feel obligated, because they need me, or because it's a way out of being broke all the time. I don't know if that's a good enough reason, Mrs. Onyx. Eleanor squeezed her hands. Those babies do need you, that's true. But you know what else is true? You need stability. You need to not worry about my prescriptions or whether the heat's gonna get shut off. You need to be able to save money and plan for a future. Wanting financial security isn't selfish, it's smart. But what about you, child? I've been taking care of myself since before you were born. I'll manage just fine. Besides, her grandmother's eyes twinkled. That man's rich. Right, big house. I bet there's room for an old lady who knows her way around a kitchen despite everything. Megan laughed. You want to come with me if you take the job? Absolutely. Someone needs to make sure those babies eat real food, and that house doesn't turn into one of those sterile museum places rich folks think is nice, Mrs. Eleanor stood, refilled their tea, but first, you sleep. Decision like this needs a rested mind. Megan did sleep 14 hours straight. Dead to the world, when she woke, her phone had 17 messages. 3 from Marcus with updates about the restaurant full health inspection, new manager being hired. Staff meeting scheduled. 2 from Detective Ramos requesting a formal statement. 1 from Michael Chun offering her the mezzanine supervisor position if she wanted to stay. And 5 from Brian, each one just checking in, asking if she was okay, saying there was no rush on the decision, sending pictures of the girls looking healthy and happy. The last message was different. My lawyer contacted me. Stephanie's being formally charged, multiple counts. Her previous employers are coming forward too. You stopped someone who'd been doing this for years. Megan stared at her phone, thinking about all those servers who'd quit, all those mistakes that weren't mistakes. The pattern of control and manipulation that had been hiding in plain sight. She'd broken something bigger than one night, exposed something that needed exposing, and maybe, just maybe, that was worth building on. She typed out a message to Brian. Can we meet tomorrow? I'd like to see the house and talk details. Not saying yes yet, but not saying no either. His response came immediately. Absolutely. What time works for you? Megan smiled and set her phone aside. Tomorrow, she'd figure out her future. Tonight, she'd sit with her grandmother and eat reheated soup and be grateful that she'd trusted her instincts. That she'd done what needed doing, that the babies were safe 3 weeks later. Megan stood in the doorway of what Brian kept calling your room and tried to process that this was real. Hardwood floors, a window overlooking the garden, furniture that matched, and a closet bigger than her grandmother's entire bedroom back at the apartment. Too much, Brian asked, hovering nervously. I can have them take out some of the furniture if it feels crowded. It's perfect, Megan said. And meant it. The decision hadn't been easy. She'd visited the house twice, met with Brian's lawyer to review the contract. Mrs. Eleanor had insisted and spent hours lying awake weighing the risks against the opportunities. In the end, it was the babies who'd decided it for her. On her second visit, Lily had been inconsolable. The new temporary nanny couldn't figure out what was wrong. Brian was at the end of his rope, and the house felt tense with barely contained chaos. Megan had picked up the baby, started humming, and within minutes all 3 girls had settled. The relief on Brian's face had been profound. They need you, Mrs. Eleanor had said that night. And you need this. Stop overthinking it. So here she was, moving into a house that had 6 bedrooms, a chef's kitchen her grandmother had already claimed as her domain, and 3 babies who lit up whenever they saw her. The nursery's across the hall, Brian said, leading her through. I had monitors installed in your room so you can hear if they wake up at night. But I'm on the same floor so we can split duties. I don't expect you to handle everything. This is a job. Not indentured servitude. The nursery was painted soft yellow, with 3 cribs arranged in a U-shape and a rocking chair by the window. Someone had added new touches since her last visit, a mobile with wooden stars, blackout curtains that actually blocked light, a small bookshelf already filled with board books. Mrs. Eleanor has been giving me notes, Brian admitted. She has strong opinions about optimal sleeping environments. That sounds like her. They'd moved her grandmother in first 3 days ago, and the house had already started to smell like home cooking instead of takeout containers. Mrs. Eleanor had taken one look at Brian's kitchen and declared it a waste of good equipment before proceeding to make a meal plan that focused on real food for growing babies. Brian hadn't argued. Megan suspected he was too relieved to have someone take charge. I want to show you something, he said. Gesturing for her to follow him downstairs, the living room had been transformed. Where before, there'd been expensive furniture arranged like a magazine spread, beautiful but untouchable. Now there were foam mats on the floor, a playpen in the corner, and toys scattered in organized chaos. I hired a child development specialist, Brian explained. She said the house was too formal, that babies need space to explore safely. Not museums to be careful in, so we're adjusting. It looks lived in. It looks like a home," he corrected quietly, which is what it should have been all along. Over the following days, they settled into a rhythm. Megan handled morning's bottles, diaper changes, tummy time, while singing songs her mother had taught her. Brian worked from his home office but came down for lunch, learning to hold bottles and burp babies without looking terrified. Mrs. Eleanor ruled the kitchen, creating meals that were somehow both nutritious and delicious, and teaching Brian basic cooking skills because a man should know how to feed his children. The girls thrived. Chloe started sleeping through the night. Grace discovered she could roll over and spent hours perfecting the skill. Lily developed a laugh that sounded like hiccups and made everyone smile. But it was the quiet moments that surprised Megan most. Like the evening she found Brian in the nursery at 2 a.m., just watching the baby sleep. She'd come to check on a noise from the monitor and discovered him sitting in the rocking chair, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. That's the problem." He gestured at the 3 sleeping babies. "They're safe. They're healthy. They're happy. And I keep thinking about how close we came to losing all of this because I wasn't paying attention." Megan sat on the floor beside the chair. "You were drowning. People don't make good decisions when they're drowning. That's what the therapist says." He smiled slightly, Mrs. Eleanor insisted I start seeing someone. Said grief left untended festers like old fruit. She has a way with words. She's right, though. I've been so focused on not falling apart that I forgot to actually heal. Just going through motions, checking boxes, telling myself that as long as the girls were alive, I was succeeding. He wiped his eyes. "But that's not parenting, that's barely surviving, so what's changed?" "You, your grandmother, this," he gestured around the nursery, "having people who actually care. Who aren't just doing a job, but are invested in these girls as people. It makes me want to be better, to actually be present instead of just managing crises." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the white noise machine and the soft sounds of baby breathing. "Can I ask you something?" Brian said eventually. "That song you sing, the one that calms them down, what is it?" "I don't know. My mom used to sing it, but I never knew the words. Just the melody. It's beautiful, and it works like magic on them. My grandma says some songs carry love in them, that my mom put her love into that melody, and now I'm passing it on. I like that." Brian stood, stretched. "Thank you for being here, for caring about them like they're yours. They're easy to love." After he left, Megan stayed a while longer, watching the baby sleep, thinking about how much had changed in less than a month. Now she'd gone from invisible waitress to essential family member. How her grandmother had gone from worrying about prescription costs to running a millionaire's kitchen. How 3 babies who'd almost been poised were now thriving in a house that finally felt like home. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus asking how the new gig was going. She'd stayed in touch with the restaurant crew. Hearing updates about the health inspection passed with flying colors after the new protocols, and the new manager strict but fair. Nothing like Stephanie. Detective Ramos had called twice with updates on the case. Stephanie was facing multiple felony charges, with 3 other families coming forward about suspicious incidents with their children at various establishments she'd worked. The investigation had expanded to involve the FDA and multiple district attorneys. "You started something important," Ramos had said. "People are finally asking the right questions," Megan typed back to Marcus. "It's good, weird, but good. How's the restaurant?" His response came immediately. "Different, better. We all got raises because apparently Stephanie was skimming the tip pool for years." Who knew? She smiled and pocketed her phone. Downstairs she could hear Mrs. Eleanor humming while she prepared bottles for the morning feeding. The same melody Megan sang to the babies, the same one her mother had sung on the bus. 3 generations of women, connected by a wordless song that carried love through hardship and loss and danger, protecting what mattered, building home wherever they landed. Megan touched the coin purse in her pocket. She still carried it, even though she didn't need to count pennies anymore. Some habits were worth keeping. Tomorrow she'd take the girls to the park, Mrs. Ajay. Eleanor wanted to teach her how to make her mother's recipe for sweet potato puree. Brian had a business dinner but would be home by 8. Normal things, safe things, the kind of routine that used to feel impossible. She checked on each baby one more time, foreheads cool, breathing steady, peaceful, then headed to her own room. Her beautiful, spacious, impossibly comfortable room where she could sleep without worrying about break-ins or unpaid bills or whether she'd have enough for bus fare. Life had changed, but she was still herself, still the girl who'd grown up with nothing and learned to make something out of scraps. Still, the woman who'd trusted her instincts when everyone else looked away, just with better furniture and 3 babies who needed her, and that felt exactly right. 6 months changed everything. The house that had once felt like a mausoleum now echoed with laughter and the chaotic sounds of 3 babies discovering the world. Chloe had started crawling with determined focus. Grace babbled in what sounded suspiciously like actual words, and Lily had developed a talent for finding trouble in the safest environments. Megan stood in the kitchen doorway, watching Mrs. Eleanor teach Brian how to properly fold dumplings, while all 3 girls sat in their high chairs, faces covered in mashed banana. No, you pinch like this, her grandmother was saying, demonstrating with the patience of someone who'd taught this lesson 100 times. Otherwise, they fall apart when they boil, and then what's the point? Brian's dumpling looked more like a lumpy sock than food. But he was trying. It counted for something. I think I'm getting worse at this, he admitted. That's because you're thinking too hard. Cooking is muscle memory, not geometry, Mrs. Eleanor patted his shoulder. We'll try again tomorrow. Megan smiled and headed to the girls, wiping banana off Lily's face before she could smear it in her hair. You're a mess, little one, Lily responded by blowing a raspberry that sent banana everywhere. That's what I get for stating the obvious. Her phone buzzed a text from Marcus asking if she was coming to Jenny's birthday party at the restaurant next week. She'd stayed connected with the old crew, meeting up monthly, hearing about the changes Michael had implemented. New training programs for recognizing workplace manipulation, anonymous reporting systems, a complete overhaul of management practices. The Stephanie effect, Marcus called it. She poised more than just bottles, Megan typed back. Wouldn't miss it. Is Carlos making his famous enchiladas? Obviously, he's already planning the menu. Also, Michael wants to talk to you about consulting on the new protocols. Interested? She stared at the message. Surprised, consulting, like her experience mattered beyond just surviving it, maybe. Let's talk at the party. Everything okay? Brian asked, washing dumpling dough off his hands. Yeah, just thinking about how weird life is now. Good weird or bad weird, definitely good weird. The trial had happened last month. Stephanie had taken a plea deal, 5 years in prison, mandatory psychological evaluation, lifetime ban from working with children or in food service. 3 other families had provided testimony about suspicious incidents at previous restaurants. The pattern was undeniable. Megan had testified for 2 hours, walking the jury through that night step by step, the locked door, the tampered bottles, the sprinkler that had saved everything. Defense attorneys had tried to make her look paranoid or attention-seeking, but the evidence was overwhelming when the verdict came down. Detective Ramos had called personally. You did good, really good. That woman won't hurt anyone else because you spoke up. Now Stephanie was just a memory, a cautionary tale about unchecked power and the importance of trusting your instincts. Girls need to go down for a nap, Mrs. Eleanor announced, already lifting Grace out of her high chair. Megan, why don't you take them up? Brian can help me finish these dumplings. I thought I was hopeless at dumplings. You are. But practice makes adequate, and adequate is better than ordering takeout every night. Bang gathered the other 2 girls and headed upstairs to the nursery. It was the best part of her day, the quiet routine of nap time, singing them down, watching their faces relax into sleep, simple, sacred. She settled into the rocking chair with Chloe, while Grace and Lily lay in their cribs, already drowsy, and she began to hum, da-da-dum-dum-da-da, the melody that had been passed down from her mother, through her, to these 3 babies, who weren't hers by blood, but felt like hers anyway. The song that had saved them, that connected them. Chloe's eyes fluttered closed. Grace's breathing deepened. But Lily started humming along. It wasn't perfect. It was barely recognizable, but it was definitely the melody. Coming from a 9-month-old baby who shouldn't be able to carry a tune yet. Megan's breath caught. She stopped singing. Lily kept going, not crying, not babbling, humming that specific melody note for note, like she'd known it forever. Brian, Megan called softly, not wanting to startle the girls. Brian, come here. He appeared in the doorway, concerned. What's wrong? Listen. Lily hummed the melody again, her tiny voice carrying the tune with eerie precision. Brian's eyes widened. How is she? I don't know, Mrs. Eleanor appeared behind Brian, drawn by the commotion, the moment she heard Lily humming. Her face went pale. Lord have mercy, she whispered. That's impossible. What? Megan stood carefully, not wanting to disturb Chloe. Grandma. What is it? Her grandmother pulled something from her pocket, the old coin purse that had belonged to Megan's mother. With shaking hands, she opened the inner compartment that Megan had never noticed and pulled out a photograph. Yellowed with age. I need to tell you something, Mrs. Eleanor said quietly, about your mother, about that song. They moved to the hallway, leaving the girls to sleep. Mrs. Eleanor sat on the window seat, still holding the photograph. Your mother didn't just sing that melody randomly. It was passed down to her from her mother, who heard it from her grandmother. Goes back generations in our family. Nobody knows where it started, but the women in our line, we all carry it. She looked at Lily's crib. That baby just proves she carries it too. But she's not. Megan stopped. She's not related to us, isn't she though, Mrs.? Eleanor's eyes were knowing. You've poured your love into those girls for months. Fed them, held them, sang to them every single day. That kind of caring leaves a mark, maybe not in blood, but in something deeper. Brian was staring at the photograph. Who is this? Megan's mother. And look at the date on the back. He turned it over. The date was 3 weeks before she died 25 years ago. The location, street, Mary's hospital, maternity ward. I don't understand, Megan said. Your mother worked as a night custodian at that hospital while she was pregnant with you. Sang that melody while she cleans. Said it helped pass the time, Mrs. Eleanor's voice was soft. There was a woman in labor. Difficult delivery, triplets. Your mother stayed with her through the night. Sang to her, held her hand, helped her feel less alone. The room tilted. No, that can't be. Her name was Rachel Lawson, Mrs. Eleanor said gently, and she made your mother promise that if anything ever happened to her, someone would sing that song to her babies, make sure they knew they were loved. Brian's face had gone absolutely white. My wife, Rachel. She talked about a woman at the hospital, someone who sang to her during the delivery. She said, his voice broke. She said that woman saved her life that night. Kept her from giving up when everything went wrong. Megan couldn't breathe. The pieces were connecting in ways that felt impossible, but somehow made perfect sense. Her mother singing on the bus, teaching her that melody. The instinct that had drawn her to help Brian that first night at the restaurant. The way the babies had responded to her like they'd been waiting for her specifically. This whole time, she whispered, my mother knew your wife helped her, and I ended up saving her daughters. Brian finished fulfilling the promise she made 25 years ago. They stood in silence, processing the weight of what this meant. The song that had traveled through generations, connecting mothers to daughters to babies who needed protecting. The invisible thread that had pulled Megan toward these specific 3 humans at the exact moment they needed her most. Do you believe in fate, Mrs. Eleanor asked. I didn't, Brian said. But now, a sound from the nursery interrupted them. Lily, humming again, then Chloe joining in, creating a harmony that shouldn't be possible. And finally Grace, adding her own voice to the melody. 3 babies who'd never met the woman who'd helped bring them into the world. Singing the song she'd left behind as a gift, Megan walked back into the nursery. Tears streaming down her face, she sat in the rocking chair and let the girls' voices wash over her, carrying her mother's love. Rachel's love, generations of love that had led to this moment. Thank you, Mama, she whispered. For the song, for teaching me to care, for making sure I'd be here when they needed me. Brian stood in the doorway, one hand pressed against his mouth. Shoulders shaking, Mrs. Eleanor wrapped an arm around him. You're Rachel, she said softly. She loved hard, fought hard. My daughter saw that in her, recognized a kindred spirit. These girls got her strength, and now they got Megan's too. The song continued. 3 baby voices creating something beautiful and impossible and absolutely perfect. A bridge between past and present. Loss and healing. Promise and fulfillment. And when the melody finally faded and the girls drifted into sleep, Megan stayed in that chair, holding her mother's coin purse, understanding finally why some songs never die. They're not just music, they're love made audible. Protection carried across time. The way mothers, biological or chosen, make sure their children know they matter. The song would continue. She'd make sure of it.